During a recent live television broadcast, an interaction between a press secretary and a journalist quickly escalated into a contentious moment, drawing widespread attention. The journalist, representing a major news network, pressed for follow-up questions regarding a matter of national interest. However, the press secretary, standing firm in her approach, chose not to entertain repeated questioning on the subject. The press conference had already been filled with pointed inquiries from multiple reporters, each seeking clarity on various topics. As the journalist attempted to steer the conversation back to an earlier question, the press secretary responded with a tone of finality, making it clear that she would not be engaging in further discussion on that specific line of questioning. The room, filled with members of the media, became tense as the journalist persisted, seemingly unsatisfied with the responses provided earlier. In a moment that has since gone viral, the press secretary swiftly shut down the journalist's attempt to continue probing. Without raising her voice, she reiterated that the administration had already addressed the matter multiple times and saw no value in revisiting it. Her decisiveness was met with mixed reactions, with some interpreting it as an assertive display of control, while others criticized it as an avoidance tactic. This exchange did not occur in isolation. The relationship between the administration and the press has been fraught with moments of tension as journalists push for transparency and officials seek to maintain order within briefings. In this particular instance, the press secretary's approach reflected a broader pattern, one in which control over the messaging is prioritized, sometimes at the cost of continued dialogue. Observers noted that the journalist, undeterred by the dismissal, attempted once more to interject. However, the press secretary promptly moved on to another reporter, signaling an end to that specific line of questioning. This decision effectively cut off any further attempts to revisit the topic, reinforcing her stance that she would not be pressured into further elaboration. The moment was dissected across multiple media platforms, with analysts debating whether the press secretary had acted appropriately. Some argued that her role required a willingness to engage with persistent questioning, while others contended that maintaining structure within a press briefing was just as important as responding to every inquiry. The divide in opinion extended beyond the press room, as members of the public also weighed in on social media. Supporters of the press secretary's decision pointed out that she had already addressed the issue multiple times and had every right to control the flow of the briefing. They saw her response as a necessary assertion of authority in a setting where reporters often attempt to dominate the conversation. Others, however, viewed it as a refusal to engage with legitimate journalistic inquiry, raising concerns about transparency and accountability. The media outlet represented by the journalist later released statements defending the persistence shown during the briefing, arguing that follow-up questions are a crucial part of holding public officials accountable. They emphasized that the role of the press is to seek clarification, particularly when responses appear vague or incomplete. Despite the controversy, the press secretary remained firm in her stance. When asked about the incident later, she reaffirmed her belief that the administration had been clear on the matter and that the decision to move on was in the best interest of maintaining order in the briefing. This moment served as a reflection of the ongoing dynamic between government officials and the media, illustrating the delicate balance between message control and press freedom. During a high-profile press briefing, tensions escalated when a journalist repeatedly attempted to revisit a question regarding a sensitive issue. The press secretary, already having addressed the topic multiple times, remained firm in her decision to move the conversation forward. However, the journalist persisted, determined to extract a more definitive answer, or perhaps a different angle on the response. As the journalist began to rephrase the question, the press secretary quickly intervened, asserting that she had already provided a sufficient answer. The exchange became a focal point of the briefing, drawing the attention of reporters in the room and media viewers nationwide. While press briefings are often characterized by persistent questioning, this particular moment stood out due to the press secretary's resolute refusal to entertain any further discussion on the topic. Despite the firm stance, the journalist was not easily deterred. In an attempt to push the conversation forward, she slightly reworded the question, seeking clarification on a specific detail. The press secretary, visibly unmoved by the tactic, interrupted before the question could be fully articulated, stating, once again, that the matter had already been addressed. Her response carried a clear message. The discussion on this particular issue was over. The interaction reflected the growing tension between government officials and the media, especially in moments when reporters feel that certain answers lack transparency. The journalist's insistence was not just about seeking additional information, but also about holding public figures accountable for their statements. On the other hand, the press secretary's approach signaled a strategic decision to maintain control over the briefing and prevent the conversation from being dominated by a single topic. Observers in the room noted that the exchange did not happen in isolation, but was part of a broader pattern of interactions between the administration and the press. While journalists see follow-up questions as an essential tool to clarify statements, press secretaries often view them as attempts to push a particular narrative. This underlying tension played out in real time as the press secretary remained unwavering in her stance, refusing to allow the discussion to circle back. The decision to cut off the line of questioning was met with mixed reactions. Supporters of the administration praised the press secretary's ability to stay composed under pressure, arguing that she had already provided sufficient responses and had every right to move on. They saw her firm stance as an example of disciplined communication, ensuring that briefings remained structured rather than descending into repetitive questioning. Critics, however, took a different view. Many saw the refusal to engage in further discussion as an attempt to sidestep accountability. In their eyes, the role of a press briefing is to provide clarity, and shutting down a follow-up question, especially on a topic of significant public interest, raised concerns about transparency. They argued that journalists should not be dismissed simply for seeking more precise answers. The moment quickly spread across news outlets and social media platforms, with commentators analyzing both sides of the argument. Some pointed out that while it is common for press secretaries to control the flow of briefings, the manner in which it is done can shape public perception. If done too aggressively, it may appear defensive. If handled with patience, it can reinforce confidence in the administration's openness. For the journalist involved, the incident became part of a larger conversation about the challenges of pressing for information in environments where officials are determined to stay on message. For the press secretary, it was a demonstration of her ability to manage a high-pressure situation without allowing a single issue to derail the briefing's agenda. Regardless of where public opinion fell, the moment underscored the ongoing friction between the media's pursuit of answers and the government's control of its messaging. The moment a journalist was cut off mid-question during a live press briefing quickly became the subject of heated debate across media circles and the public. The interaction, though brief, carried significant weight as it underscored the ongoing tension between the administration and the press. Within hours, clips of the exchange circulated widely, prompting discussions on journalistic integrity, government transparency, and media control. News networks, particularly those that emphasize investigative reporting, were quick to analyze the confrontation. Some commentators argued that the decision to shut down a follow-up question reflected a lack of willingness to engage with critical inquiries. Others defended the press secretary's actions, claiming that maintaining order in a briefing is crucial and that reporters must respect the structure of such events. On social media, the debate took on a life of its own. Supporters of the administration hailed the move as a necessary assertion of authority, praising the press secretary for refusing to be drawn into what they saw as repetitive or agenda-driven questioning. In contrast, journalists and media advocates expressed concern that such dismissals set a dangerous precedent, limiting the public's ability to receive comprehensive answers on pressing issues. The viral nature of the moment was fueled in part by the visual impact of the exchange. The press secretary's firm tone, the journalist's insistence, and the abrupt shift to another reporter created a dramatic spectacle. Viewers dissected every detail, from body language to tone of voice, searching for deeper meaning in what might have otherwise been a routine interaction. Television panels and opinion columns soon followed, with experts weighing in on whether the press secretary's approach was a strategic communications move or an attempt to stifle inquiry. Some pointed out that politicians and officials have long employed similar tactics to control messaging, ensuring that briefings stay on script. Others countered that while message discipline is important, outright dismissal of follow-up questions can erode trust between the government and the press. The journalist at the center of the incident also became part of the conversation, with supporters arguing that persistent questioning is a fundamental part of journalism. They viewed the interruption as an affront to the role of the press in a democratic society. The journalists' network stood behind their correspondent, emphasizing the importance of pressing for clarity, especially on matters of public interest. Meanwhile, political figures and commentators from different ideological perspectives framed the moment in ways that aligned with their broader narratives. Those critical of the administration saw it as an example of avoiding tough scrutiny, while allies portrayed it as an instance of standing firm against what they deemed as media hostility. Beyond immediate media coverage, the exchange became a case study in the evolving relationship between the government and journalists. While press secretaries are expected to manage the flow of information, the extent to which they control interactions with reporters often determines how they are perceived by the public. If they are seen as too combative, they risk alienating journalists and viewers. If they are too lenient, they may lose control of the briefing. In the days following the incident, discussions continued to ripple through political and media circles. Some saw it as a minor moment blown out of proportion, while others considered it a reflection of broader trends in how public officials engage with the press. Regardless of interpretation, the fact that it sparked such widespread debate demonstrated the enduring significance of media access and government accountability in public discourse. The interaction between a journalist and a press secretary, which quickly garnered attention following a live press briefing, was part of a larger, ongoing pattern of tension between the administration and the media. This was not the first time that a reporter had attempted to press for more information during a briefing, nor was it the first time that a government official had refused to engage with follow-up questions. However, this particular instance drew significant focus, both for the way it unfolded in real time and for the broader context surrounding it. The event took place in the midst of an already charged atmosphere between political officials and journalists, particularly when dealing with sensitive or controversial issues. Press briefings are often tightly controlled affairs, where officials must balance providing information with maintaining a clear and concise narrative. In this case, the press secretary's firm decision to shut down further questioning underscored the administration's approach to managing media relations. As the journalist attempted to ask a follow-up question, it quickly became clear that the press secretary was not willing to revisit the issue at hand. This refusal wasn't a one-off decision, but rather a continuation of a broader strategy to limit the scope of certain discussions. By declining to answer further questions on the topic, the press secretary sent a clear signal about the administration's position on the matter. The moment was significant, not just because of the immediate interaction, but also because it occurred within the context of a larger political narrative. In the days leading up to this incident, there had been other moments where journalists had similarly pressed for clarification on key issues, and officials had resisted engaging further. The pattern of limiting responses or shutting down lines of questioning raised concerns among media observers who saw it as an attempt to restrict access to information. At the same time, supporters of the administration defended the press secretary's actions, arguing that there comes a point in any briefing where repeating answers or engaging in what they viewed as unnecessary questioning becomes counterproductive. From their perspective, maintaining control over the narrative is essential, and the press secretary's decision to move on to another topic was within her rights. However, the refusal to engage also highlighted the broader issue of media accountability. Journalists who are tasked with asking tough questions to hold public figures to account were left grappling with the idea that their inquiries were being shut down. While follow-up questions are a staple of the journalistic process, they are often viewed with suspicion by officials who believe that the questions may be designed to elicit specific answers or to drive a particular narrative. The challenge for press secretaries, then, becomes finding a way to navigate this dynamic while still providing adequate responses. This incident also occurred in a broader media environment where questions of transparency and accountability are at the forefront of political discourse. In the wake of the exchange, analysts and commentators turned their attention to the role of the press in holding powerful figures to account. They argued that the refusal to entertain follow-up questions, particularly on a matter that had sparked public interest, was a dangerous trend that could undermine the press's ability to fulfill its watchdog function. Moreover, the incident came at a time when public trust in both the media and government institutions was already strained. For some, the exchange served as a reminder of the delicate relationship between the press and those in power, where questions about transparency often clash with efforts to maintain a tightly controlled message. As the story spread across media outlets and social platforms, it fueled further debates about the role of the press secretary, the responsibility of journalists, and the importance of maintaining a free and open flow of information in democratic societies. In the aftermath of the exchange, the broader conversation surrounding media access and governmental transparency only intensified. What had initially appeared to be a single moment of confrontation quickly evolved into a significant focal point in discussions about how public figures interact with the press and the extent to which they should be held accountable for their actions. The interaction between the journalist and press secretary, while seemingly a brief moment, ultimately highlighted the ongoing struggles between government officials and the media. This incident serves as a reminder of the tension that often exists when it comes to transparency and the role of the press in holding those in power accountable. On one side, there are those who argue that a strong control over communication is necessary to maintain order and clarity, ensuring that briefings do not devolve into chaotic exchanges. From this perspective, a press secretary's decision to shut down a repetitive question is justified as a way to maintain focus and prevent the conversation from being hijacked by one issue. On the other hand, this event also brought to light the role of the media in a democracy, where the press is tasked with asking the tough questions and ensuring that the public receives the information it needs. Journalists are not merely passive recipients of the administration's talking points. They are active participants in the process of accountability. By attempting to press for further details, the journalist in this case was simply doing their job, seeking clarification and, in their view, holding the press secretary accountable for providing clear answers to important questions. For many, the decision to shut down the conversation raised concerns about the extent to which public figures are willing to engage with tough inquiries. In an era when public trust in both the government and the media is often fragile, such exchanges can have lasting effects on the public's perception of transparency and accountability. When questions are dismissed, particularly without satisfactory answers, it only deepens the divide between the government and the public. This dynamic can lead to a loss of confidence in the administration's willingness to be open and forthcoming with information that is crucial to the public's understanding of key issues. The exchange also sheds light on the broader challenges faced by both the press and government officials. Journalists face increasing pressure to not only ask questions, but also to ensure those questions are answered in a meaningful way. In turn, officials must balance the need to control the narrative with the requirement to provide transparent communication. As the public increasingly demands more information, the challenge lies in striking a balance between these two forces. The tension between the need for control and the demand for transparency is unlikely to disappear anytime soon, and incidents like this only serve to intensify the discussion. Ultimately, this confrontation serves as a microcosm of a larger struggle, one that plays out regularly between the media and political figures. While some view the press secretary's actions as a necessary demonstration of authority, others see it as an example of evading accountability. The incident underscores the importance of maintaining a healthy relationship between the press and government, one based on mutual respect and an understanding of each side's role in a functioning democracy. Whether or not the press secretary's actions were justified is a matter of debate, but it undeniably reignites the conversation about the vital role the media plays in ensuring transparency and holding those in power accountable.